I do think that we have to be careful about how the internet works, both to connect us and to segment us. And of course, we also have to think about market relations in relationship to networking, which is, of course, a concept that's very important for corporate logics. I have a feeling that that question comes from some other places I would have to learn more about. Whether bodies feel satisfied enough. I find it really interesting that someone could ask that question. I mean, it's interesting to go from necropolitics, the necropolitics question, to whether we're too satisfied. And I kind of think that maybe in Portugal you're in this odd place because you're in the EU and you're better off than a lot of places, but you're also the subjugated periphery and you see what's coming. So I don't know. How I'm just symptomatically, it's like, oh, I got both questions in Portugal. Ooh. What about satisfaction? Let's think about satisfaction. I don't really care so much about satisfaction. It's interesting. As a concept, it's not something that I think about or theorize or call for, like we deserve satisfaction. I use a different language, which is more about surviving and flourishing or persisting. And I think maybe there's a little Spinoza in my thinking, but I hate to say that because I know the Deleuzians will come in. But I read Spinoza before Deleuze, so just, you know, the ethics, okay, Spinoza's ethics. So here we go. But I think maybe ongoing desire, right? I think the desire to desire, maybe the Lacanian idea is a good one here. What do we need? Do we need the satisfaction of desire? Do we need our bodies to be satisfied? Do we need consumer satisfaction? I don't think so. I think we need a certain sense of support and future for desire, that we might be creatures who can continue to desire, whose desire to desire has not yet been destroyed. How do we fight the binary norm? Well, I think we start with the idea that there are vast numbers of people who live outside the binary norm already. In other words, it's just a question of linking those people and getting them together in some pretty well-organized ways. And it pains me that sometimes I see feminists who struggle against the trans movement, or I see trans or gay, lesbian people who are struggling against feminism, or groups from any of these who are not yet connected with other people who are living outside of normative gender, but who are primarily dealing with poverty, or primarily dealing with literacy, or mobility, or basic rights of citizenship. So the real question is, at what point do we produce agonistic alliances, alliances among those who may not utterly love each other, for the purposes of not only contesting binary gender, which does do violence to so many people, but also taking from that critique the idea that there has to be support for greater embodied complexity in life, and thinking about the body and how it does suffer from social norms, not just from social norms, but also from the threat of violence. If that became the site of a certain kind of alliance, it seems to me we would be articulating in new ways. So let's not only contest that, but also contest in general the violence that norms can do, or the violence that those who are non-conforming do experience when they are without adequate support, or in hostile cultural and political spaces. How bodies in assembly can reconfigure the sphere of appearance? Well,
Yeah.
it's funny. Some of these figures became queer by virtue of being in the line. In other words, I mean, I love it that Barbra Streisand's there. I don't have any problem with that. And why not? She is campy, right? She is super campy. But when you finally have her there, kind of subtly at the end of a row that includes, I don't know, any number of flaming figures, you know, there's something new that happens there. It's a different kind of juxtaposition, and it reconfigures our idea of how she seems. She could be normative gender, right? We could see her in Glamour magazine. We could see her as, see, that's normative gender, we could say. But maybe not. Maybe there's something in the normative that bespeaks its non-normativity, and that assembling it in certain ways actually brings out that tension. So it's not just how pastiche works or how counterpoint works in Godard, but you know, even in public assemblies, you sometimes get a kind of sense of who the people are that is not the sense that you usually have of what the people are. And I do think that it's in public assemblies that visual and audible and tactile ways of reconfiguring who the people are do take place. I mean, if one enters the sphere of appearance within a regulated structure, and I think we do have to agree with Jacques Rancière that the sphere of appearance is regulated. Certain things can appear and certain things cannot. I mean, he makes an even stronger claim that politics, which would be the eruption of the people, is precisely what cannot appear in the regulated sphere of appearance, right? I think his view is maybe too romantic for me, but what I do accept is that there is the sphere of appearance, which Hannah Arendt gives us, is regulated, which she wouldn't have liked, and that it gets deregulated or opened up in certain ways when dominant imagery starts emerging that does call into question the repressive and exclusionary frameworks within which we understand who the people are, and it's quite the problem. Like, are the hopeful migrants at the on the border, are they the people? Are they the people? Yes, no. Are they the limit of the people? Is that where the sphere of visibility ends? Or if we do get the image, is it periodic, sensational, in some way, or is it part of the complexity of who the people are? So I do think, even though assemblies, demonstrations are transient, and they are transient, something happens within them that is recurrent, which is that the question of who the people are gets opened up again and again. I'm not saying that I have complete utopian faith in bodies in assembly. I don't. But I do think something does happen there that reopens the question of what is a democracy and what is a people. I guess I think that I did answer the questions.
Are you tired or?
Well, I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do we have a little bit more of time to questions? Okay. And well, you were not quite democratic because there are people up there and outside. I don't know if okay.
Obrigada. I would like to make a question about the conflict that sometimes exists between feminism and the trans community. I hope this doesn't come off as confusing, but it is a little bit confusing for me, so I'll try to frame this in the best way possible. So we have these two ideas. One idea that gender is a construction, and one idea that a polar opposite idea that gender is not a construction, is an inherited truth, that you are born in a way. How can we conciliate the idea that gender is in fact a construction, but at the same time be supportive of the trans community? How can we frame a discourse theoretically and in practical terms that we can be supportive of the trans community, but at the same time we can't believe that gender doesn't exist?
Oh, well, I thank you for that question, because it's going to help me clarify some things. And I'm aware of this debate in these terms, but for me, to say gender is a construction does not mean it does not exist. It exists. It exists very strongly. It exists very pervasively. And I don't think we can live in a world in which we're suddenly without genders, or at least maybe we can imagine such a world, but given where we are historically, I can't imagine us getting there. And I've never said that what we need is a full nullification of gender. A lot of people really like their genders too. Let's keep that in mind. They're not about to give them up or change them much. Okay. But first of all, so I don't think gender is false or that gender doesn't exist. When we say it's a construction, what do we mean? Well, first of all, it's not chosen in the sense of an existential choice. We're assigned genders. And gender assignment is the first act of gender construction, and it's an act that somebody else performs. I don't perform it. Somebody else performs it, or a whole set of institutions perform it. This is a boy, this is a girl. Forms are filled out. This person is put into the world as a boy, as a girl. Okay, and gender assignment is the first act of gender construction. It is not chosen. It is the unchosen basis of gender construction. Now, many people feel that the assignment is simply wrong, that it's unlivable. And in my view, an unlivable gender assignment has to be changed. So when somebody says to me, this is fundamental to who I am, I must change my gender, they have my support.